Hi class, how are you today? Perfect. The learning target for today is to use bisectors to solve for missing measures. Now the scale is a 3. I can solve for missing measures using bisectors. 2. I can solve for missing measures using bisectors when given both bisected parts. That would be instead of given one of the bisected parts and the entire segment. A 1 is I can find missing measures using bisectors when there's no variables involved, so just numbers. And 0, I cannot find missing measures using bisectors. Before we get started, I have to start off by defining a few terms. First, I mentioned bisector a couple times. What is a bisector? Well, there are a few different kinds of bisectors. First one we're going to talk about is a segment bisector. A segment bisector is a line that splits a segment into two equal parts. So, in order for something to be a bisector, the way it intersects a segment is to cut it in half. If it cuts it in another spot, it's not necessarily a bisector. To bisect it, you have to cut it into two equal pieces. Next is an angle bisector. An angle bisector, similar to a segment bisector, is a line that splits an angle into two equal parts. Next is a midpoint. A midpoint is a point that splits a segment into two equal parts. So instead of a line that's splitting a segment into two equal parts, it's a point, which it effectively does the same thing as a segment bisector. It turns it into two equal parts.
Alright, so here's our first example. Say we have a line segment DE and it bisects line segment AC. We know that line segment AB is 5. What is the measure of line segment BC? Remember, we learned in a previous class that we mark bisectors by putting a little line through each side to mark that they are the same length, like it is done here in red. So we know that AB is 5, BC should be the same length, so that should also be 5. So BC equals 5. Easy so far? Good. It also works the same with midpoints. In this problem, we have line segment FH with a point G in the middle. It says here that G is the midpoint of FH. And again, it's marked by those little red marks saying that those two sides are equal. So, what you do is, you see that FG is 12, so again, we know that the other side is equal to that, so GH is also 12. However, the problem wants to know FH, which is the entire thing. So if you know FG is 12, and that's half of FH, and GH is also 12, the other half, half plus half is a whole, so 12 plus 12 is 24. So we know that FH is 24. So it doesn't just work with segment bisectors, it works with angle bisectors too. So in this case, we have segment LJ is a bisector of angle IJK. So that means angle IJL is equal or congruent to, as we say in geometry, angle LJK. Those two are congruent. So instead of asking for us for an actual measurement, This time it wants to know what is the value of x, because instead of giving us actual numbers, it gives us expressions. So, let's solve for x. Since we know those two are equal, let's set it up in an equation. X plus 20 is equal to 2x plus 6. So now, this is an equation we can solve for. Whenever you have x on both sides of the equation, you want to get it so they're on the same side. So take the regular x and subtract it over to the other side. That'll leave you with 20 equals x plus 6. So then subtract the 6 from both sides, and you get x equals 14. Alright, so here's the final example. In this case, we're back to segments, and we have PQ is a bisector of line segment MO. But in this case, the two values they give you are both expressions, they both have x in them, but they want you to find the actual value of mn. So this is multi-step now. First, we have to find out what x is. So just like we did before, since they're equal by the red marks, we set them equal to each other. X plus 1 equals 3x minus 5. And just like we did last time, subtract x from both sides, giving us 1 equals 2x minus 5. Then undo the subtraction to add 5 to both sides, where it gives us 2x equals 6. Now we need to undo the multiplication, divide by 2, and that will give us x equals 3. So now that we know x equals 3, it wants us to find mn. Well, mn is x plus 1. So if x is 3, then mn will just be equal to 3 plus 1, which is 4.
Alright, here's the sponge activity. Solve for each indicated measure. In number 1, they want you to find BC and they give you AC. Number 2, they want you to find GH and they give you both GH and HI, but in terms of x, so you have to solve for x first. Alright, that's it for this video. As per usual, take notes on the entire video, attempt the sponge, and write somewhere, either at the end of your notes or just circle it on the scale. Let me know after watching this video where you think you are in the scale. And submit everything to eBackpack. Have a good night.